Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining today's STEM Community Lunchtime Conversation. Today, I'm really excited about today's focus. It's near and dear to me, which is making STEM accessible for students with exceptional needs. And really excited that we have Chevy Humphrey from Arizona Science Center, the President and CEO, joining me. So next slide.
We have a few guest speakers, and welcome. This is Chevy Humphrey. I'm so excited that you're here today. And I'm thrilled about our speakers that are going to share their great work and talk about what they're doing in this area. Kenneth Mims, Superintendent of Science Prep Academy. Anna Hart, Behavioral and Educational Consultant, Stepping Stones Homeschool. And then Matt Levac, Therapy Supervisor at Axel. So I'm really excited about having them on board. Next slide. You know, as part of these conversations, and Jeremy and I actually had a conversation, and we're like, what types of programs can we bring virtually, since the coming to the bricks and mortars place is not the proper place to have one-on-one meetings, et cetera. How can we get deep and personal with our STEM and with our programming? So these conversations really have brought in order to meet the needs of our community with goals in mind of, you know, bringing Arizona STEM ecosystem together to share what we're doing. Also giving everybody an opportunity to connect with each other, identify topics that are of interest, and will continue connecting over time to actually start conversations and discuss strategies and facilitate collaboration. And also moving forward international leadership in the STEM space. I know I have a call every other week with leaders in STEM from around the world, off every continent, and they are actually talking about some of the same things we are going through in this program. So next slide. Our agenda, a few housekeeping rules. During this first part of the conversation, our presenters will share ways to make STEM accessible for students and exceptional needs. And then once the presentations have concluded, we will then have participants join moderated breakout rooms so smaller groups can talk more about the topic using a few guided questions. As we get closer to that point, we will drop a Google Doc in the chat where you can take notes, and then we will then all come back into one room and take a few minutes to have a couple of breakout rooms share their top ideas and thoughts within the whole group. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jeremy.
Awesome, thanks Chevy. And so a few, 4 final things. First is, again, mentioning, please be sure to post comments and questions in the chat. We really love the conversations that have happened to really bolster what's happening at the same time. Please, of course, remain muted during the conference call, and when we go into the breakouts, unmute. Feel free to enable your video during the conference, especially during the breakout room, so we can have kind of video-to-video chats. If we do run into bandwidth issues, we might ask people to turn off their cameras. And just so you know, the presentation will be recorded and we'll make it available after the show. So now I'm really excited to welcome our first presenter, Kenneth Mims, and he's the Superintendent of Science Prep Academy. And so for the speakers, again, I'm going to put a timer on, and then I'll give you a reminder when we're 1 minute remaining. So take it away, Kenneth.
All right, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Mims. I'm the founder of Science Prep Academy and also the superintendent. We are a STEM-based school for students who are neurodiverse with autism, and we believe that neurodiverse students with autism actually can become computer scientists. I've been a K-12 STEM teacher for almost 20 years, and I discovered my passion in 2008 while teaching a physical science 8th grade class. Students were disengaged and for the most part, but one day I received a really high level question from one student that just blew my mind. And this student attending the class with the aide, he sat by himself at lunch, and he really just didn't understand the social norms of a middle school classroom. But after this question, I asked the director of special education what the student's disability was, and I was told autism. I started researching autism and realized that individuals in the scientific community, including myself, had very similar characteristics, including a passion for science, great problem-solving skills, and ability to concentrate and focus on details. as seen in the movies like The Accountant with Ben Affleck, or the TV show The Good Doctor. You have individuals like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Wozniak, Zuckerberg, and more that have similar characteristics. So my passion for teaching transition to helping students with autism become future members of the STEM workforce. We're talking about 80% of people with autism are under the age of 22, and 80% of individuals with autism are unemployed or underemployed. So I founded Science Prep Academy in 2016. Our solution is simple. It's to provide experiences that prepare students with autism to enter a college or career pathway in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. We can go to the next slide. So we have created a partnership with Amazon as an Amazon Future Engineer School. This allows us to provide an advanced placement computer science curriculum to our students as students take a computer science AP exam, and also they have the ability to apply for a $40,000 scholarship with Amazon and also receive an internship. Next slide. So what we have is a very good computer science curriculum. And this particular computer science curriculum starts at 6th grade, so we're 6th through 12th grade. So in the middle school, we're looking at the fundamentals, and we do it through block programming, computer science discoveries, intro to computer science. But we use the first Lego League as an engagement, a way to engage students hands-on with robots, but we introduce them to the computer science through the introduction of robots and programming the robots. And then in high school, our students transition into an AP pathway, looking at Python and Java. And we again use the first program or the first tech program to introduce them to higher level computer science and computer thinking. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, and part of that, the first programs really allow us to focus on building character, self-esteem, confidence, transitioning into a career that they love, and finding a long-term employment. So we really have been able to use the first program as a way to really engage our students, but also focus on some of those social and emotional communication skills that we found that students are weak in. Our future plans, our current future plans include pivoting into an education research center called Neurodiversity Education Research Center, or NERC. And NERC will work to increase the successful participation of neurodiverse students and young adults in the STEM workforce. So we're really excited. We have had a lot of great success, but it's a lot of work for us to do, and we really just want to be able to position ourselves to provide a great support, not only to our students and families, but to all the students and families in Arizona and throughout the nation, eventually, that are neurodiverse with autism. I'm really excited about some of the partnerships that we have. Currently, we're located in South Mountain, Phoenix. We have a partnership with the Salvation Army Croc Center. That has been a great opportunity to be located in a great location. I just want to speak briefly, and you can cut me off whenever, on some of the things that we're finding in this current COVID situation with it, which it's distance learning. And that's, yeah, and that's something that, you know, we're looking to partner with other organizations and figure out how we can continually provide quality support to families and students in this current transition period.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for providing those thoughts. And I think it's going to really help also in conversations that we're going to follow up in the breakouts as well. Next, it's my pleasure to welcome Anna Hart. She's behavioral and educational consultant of Stepping Stones Homeschool. And just from my personal interactions, where she's like almost like the whisper, being able to really understand people with autisms, working actually with my son, and really speaks to him in a way that has helped progress him in an amazing way and has a lot of amazing insights to add to the conversation. So take it away, Anna.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you for having me today. Again, my name is Anna Hart, and I'm an autism specialist, a special educator, and a speech therapist. I've been working I've been teaching, gosh, for 21 years now, and working specifically with children with autism for the past 10 years, but I do still work with other children with special needs, and have found that the methodology that I use for my students with autism works really well with most other disabilities. Most of the disabilities that I come in contact with are children with language-based learning disabilities. So the modality for teaching children with autism works with them as well. And next slide, please. Making STEM accessible for students with special needs. So special needs is a huge category of students, and like I said, many children with special needs share similar characteristics, one being that many of them are language-based learning disabilities, meaning we can't teach with language, or we have to minimize our language to be able to teach. When we talk about children with autism, particularly, I think the historical understanding of children with autism was that there was a cognitive impairment. And according to Autism Speaks, 25%, 31% of children with ASD have an intellectual disability, 25 are in the borderline range, and 45% are in the average to above average range. And I would contend that these children follow the typical bell curve, that I do think you really have 50% of children that have average intelligence. I think the issue is that we don't have a way to measure adequately their intelligence. And on top of that, we haven't been using strategies that appropriately teach children with autism, and therefore their intellect suffers because they're not getting the information, because they don't learn through language, or their ability to learn through language is limited. If I could give one takeaway, the way I think of my children with autism is that they're like a house, and I can't go through the front door to access them. I might have to go through a window. I might have to go through the chimney. I've got to find all kinds of ways to get in there, because there's an individual there with a, in most instances, with an average IQ, and has the ability to learn. I have to find a way in there to teach them. Next slide, please. So the classic modality for disseminating information in our schools is through language. Essentially, the teacher stands there and talks, and students listen. Children with autism and most other disabilities struggle to understand and use language. Temple Grandin is a scientist and a famous individual with autism, and in hearing her speak and listening to her lectures, the one thing that always comes to mind is that these individuals think in pictures. So if they think in pictures, why don't we teach in pictures? And that means presenting new information visually. We will connect the language therapeutically. So yes, our students need language because they need to be able to communicate and understand language, but when we're teaching new concepts, doing that through the visual modality is always the best modality. And then therapeutically, your speech pathologist is going to work on connecting conceptual information with language. Next slide, please. So we're translating concepts that may be taught with words into pictures and providing students with visuals so that they can learn concepts that are normally presented through a verbal modality. We are also presenting, when we are presenting information in language, we're using as little language as possible. How can we get the point across with as little language as possible? Additionally, visuals provide a permanence that the flow of language does not. Language is like a running river. I've heard someone say, one of my mentors said that, it's like a running river. And for the typical individual, we have a sort of auditory loop, so we can hear auditory information, we can play it over and over again. Individuals with autism have varying degrees of that, if they have that capability at all, and it depends on the student. So visual presentation gives a permanence that oral language does not. Next slide, please. And this is an example of a visual, very simplistic. I threw this together. This might be a lecture in a classroom where the teacher is teaching about mammals. How easy. We just, here's the, on the left side are the characteristics of what make up a mammal. We sort these following animals into mammal and not mammal based on these characteristics, and the student might have to do a little bit of research on that. So while there's a classroom discourse going on, this child has this in front of them to be able to reference so that they can follow along with the classroom discourse and also get the content of what the teacher is saying in a visual modality. And I heard that buzzer go off, so looks like I was successful staying in the 5 minutes. I have a million more things I could say, but I will stop right there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here and providing those important insights. Next, we have Matt Levac, the therapy supervisor at Excel in Arizona chapter, lead makers for making change. So really happy to have you, Matt. So take it away.
Thanks, guys. Excited to be here. So yeah, I wear a couple of different hats. Makers Making Change is what I'll talk about a little bit today and how it relates to making STEM accessible for kids with a variety of needs and disabilities. Next slide, please. So a little bit about me. I'm an occupational therapist. So following Anna works perfectly. It's a good segue there. I have a certificate in assistive technology. I started the Makers Making Change chapter in the fall as part of my capstone for that certificate. And give a full disclaimer, I'm a late bloomer to the tech field. So next slide, please. And then the big thing that I've learned, so working at Excel is my 9-to-5 job, I like to say, where we serve a wide range of students with different disabilities, some on the spectrum, some with developmental disabilities. So what we really look at doing is providing this framework called Universal Design for Learning. And what we do with that is really look at removing any of the barriers by anticipating the needs of our students. So we do that with different assessments, providing visuals to Anna's point, and really kind of finding where we can meet the students where they're at. I like to use the two pictures here that I came across a year ago or so by my own presentation, or from a presentation I was attending. And it really gives a good visual of the difference between universal design or designing for all, which is on your left. So it's a Guggenheim Museum, New York. A nice little accessible rampway, so really limits the barriers there for anybody with mobility concerns. And then your traditional model of technology is there on the right. That's providing a ramp to a non-accessible building. So really looking at when we design projects and design assignments for students with disabilities, are we anticipating their barriers and making sure that we can design it for all of our students and that we don't have to go after the fact and retrofit assignments to meet certain needs. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the what of universal design, and there's really three main principles. And kind of going back again, segueing to what Annie was saying with having multiple means of representation is kind of the first principle. So whether that's providing information with visuals, providing it with speech to text, providing it in more of a video format, making sure that we're just not using one means when we're providing the information that we're talking about. The second principle is providing multiple means for action and expression. And what that really means is, once a student has been presented information, you're not just using one form to kind of really see what their knowledge is at. So if they're taking a multiple choice test, maybe they can do an oral presentation, maybe they can do a bubble chart. So providing them the different ability levels to express their action, kind of their knowledge for the content. And then the third set kind of goes back to Kenneth's point of providing different kind of STEM activities. So multiple means of engagement and really kind of finding activities and projects that students are really into. We do find that a lot of our students tend to, favor kind of the STEM field, especially the technology and engineering, which is another reason for me to kind of get more involved in the tech field. But having that third principle of multiple means of engagement to make sure that we're capturing our students' attention and getting their focus. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the how, and this is kind of how I like to tie it in to Makers Making Change, is really using this project-based learning format and starting with the problem. So up top, you kind of see how we mostly do it, whereas we kind of have information presented to students and they kind of test them after the fact. Project-based learning really focus on what's the problem that we can solve, having students learn what they need to know about that problem, and then have students apply what they've learned to solve that problem. And if you go to the next slide, I'll kind of wrap it up here. And I use Makers Making Change because they have a very diverse assistive device library that's open source, which means you can pull these projects down. They have the guides. There's a lot of 3D printing or CAD design projects. There's a lot of basic toy adaptations. So very straightforward STEMmy type projects that our students tend to get really engaged in. And then we use that universal design, the universal design of learning concepts to really kind of tie it in and present them with those STEM projects that they can learn. So, And that's all I have.
Awesome. So thank you, Matt. And then now over to Hope.
All right, so here we go. Moderators, thank you again for being in those breakout rooms for us, and thank you presenters for your presentations. Here we go. Got it.
Minimize, restore, no, not this. How do I do that? Go this way, here we go. I don't need the slides right now because we're welcoming them back.
All right. You good? I just sent the questions to you and I'm sending everybody back.
All right, sounds good.
Welcome back.
Hi there. How was your breakout room? Welcome back, everybody. Coming in nice and swiftly. I like it. We hope you had a great time in your breakout room discussions. Once the presenters return, we had a couple of questions that were in the chat box before you headed out to breakout rooms. So we definitely wanted to make sure our presenters have an opportunity to answer about the iPad tactical kits and a couple other questions. So,
looks like we're just waiting on breakout room 1, Kelly. And so they have about 15 seconds and they'll automatically get sent back.
Perfect. So I see that Matthew is back as well, and Kenneth, and let's see, is Anna back?
No, Anna's in breakout room 1, but they are being closed now. So here you go.
All right, so Kenneth and Matt and Anna, when she comes back, there were a couple of questions for you in the chat box before you headed to breakout rooms. So Kenneth, if you could answer if you have tried Osmo, the iPad tactile kits with elementary age students.
No, actually, I'm not familiar with them.
So maybe we need to try that, right? What about Anna?
Yeah.
Welcome back. Have you tried Osmo iPad tactical kits with elementary age students?
I have not.
So maybe
that question was from me.
Yeah, Roscoe, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was just talking to the folks in my breakout room too, and I know that they said that they use them. But when I started this company to teach STEM subjects to elementary kids, and I'm sorry, I got my kids screaming in the back. But the first place where I picked up my Osmos from was an autistic school. And they suggested that it was great for autistic learners. And I'm so sorry he's screaming in the background.
It's okay, it's allowed.
I've actually tried out.
I'm kind of running away from him, but feel free to contact me, but I've heard from them and from others as well. I had an autistic learner in my class and he did really well. And this is elementary age. I think it works really well for them. Coding, math, spelling. So if you haven't tried it, call me.
Okay, Matt, you wanted the answer?
Yeah, so we had an Osmo here that was actually donated by a parent that we tried with some students. And it's definitely one of those things where, because of the visual nature of it, it works on an iPad, that you get we had a number of students who were highly engaged with it. We also had other students who it was kind of inappropriate for because there's a lot of moving pieces on it. So again, I guess it goes back to the population you're working on, but it's definitely appeared to be a useful tool to give a shot out or to try out with students because of that visual nature of doing stuff on the iPad screen.
Excellent. And Marnie had posted a couple more questions, so I'll pose it to all three of our panelists. What role do you see for informal STEM in engaging students with disabilities? And number two, what role, if any, do you see for civic organizations like Kiwanis, Rotary, Optimist, etc., in helping make STEM accessible for all learners? So any of our panelists willing to take on either of those questions?
Yeah, I think the informal nature of it. So being an occupational therapist, the core is always, using the occupation. And in this presence, it's STEM. So using STEM informally just to get that engagement. There's a lot of information, especially in the assistive technology field, where whether it's speech language pathologists or OTs or assistive technology professionals are using STEM as the engagement occupation. They're using STEM informally. They're using it to say, hey, like, you want to, make this robot do something, use your speaking device, the AAC device. They're kind of tying in STEM informally just to get that engagement piece, because to Kenneth's point, right, a lot of our students are just naturally engaged. There's a curiosity factor. They may be nonverbal, but making something do something, making a robot move, and being able to kind of incorporate different STEM technology pieces is definitely, I'm seeing that more and more within our profession and our field of kind of the rehab professionals. So.
That's excellent. When I taught sixth grade math, we actually had lunch buddies, and we went into the inclusion in the self-contained class, and the students were really amazed when we had them doing the same activity right together, and really helping level the playing field so that students understand that just because of the disability doesn't mean they're not engaged in the learning. So I think that's important as well, is the inclusion and the awareness from other learners, not only on a campus, but within the community, that everybody could love technology, right? So work
Correct,
together.
yeah. Kids will be kids, no matter, what kind of disability they may have, so.
Yeah.
And then as far as the organizational piece goes, the big thing with Makers Making Change that I found and kind of really got connected with is this fact of like putting on events. So you can take those kind of like Kiwanis organizations, if they want to host an event that's based around STEM and they want to make it, kind of an inclusive model. I know there's a couple different organizations out there that can work with those organizations and say, hey, you want to host an event to get individuals maybe on the spectrum or maybe with more motor impairments and expose them to STEM. They could be that hub and provide those kind of host events and then kind of naturally bring people in and kind of advertise that way. I guess that's how I see organizations like that being involved in kind of inclusion in STEM concepts.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Kenneth, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the aspect of the civic organizations and also the business community. It's very, they provide a great opportunity to support, sponsor innovation opportunities as far as grants with programs, but also I think they can play a great opportunity as far as changing the narrative. And we talked about this in the breakout group, and the narrative around individuals who have different disabilities as employees, particularly STEM employees. So, as we move forward within this particular transitional period, I think the local civic community organizations, businesses are, they have the opportunity to change the narrative as far as not just hiring programs, but making a more, I guess, inclusive environment for individuals that are diverse as far as disabilities, and really just helping to push the narrative and change the narrative about the capacity of individuals.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point, right? And we all have the opportunity as a STEM, community to really push the narrative for all learners and inclusion and awareness. So I appreciate all of our presenters. Anna, did you want to add any additional information?
Sure. Yeah, it took me a minute to catch up because I was thinking about the Osmo thing. And then you said the question and I was like, I just missed that whole, but we're talking about inclusion. And this is really, really important and actually near and dear to my heart, because I feel like inclusion is not only important for the individual who's being included, but for the typical population. Because what that means for the typical population is understanding and accepting the diversity of learners that are in a classroom. And when we can educate neurodiverse children in the classroom and offer alternative ways for them to learn, it benefits not only all the other children in the classroom, because they not only see the strengths and gifts of each child in the classroom, but the supports that we put in place for, even though it's for a targeted child, they benefit all the kids. And the research shows that most learners are visual learners. All young children are hands-on learners. So when we present this information in a classroom about inclusion, I often am trying to, I guess, sell the point that it benefits all the children in the classroom when we are presenting information in alternative ways. And then number two, it benefits, I think, more our neurotypical population to be educated with individuals with special needs, because it teaches us to understand and appreciate the gifts that are offered by everybody, even if it's unconventional. And I think that my level of comfort with individuals with special needs comes from, I grew up in a family, my sister has autism. And so there's just a level of understanding and a level of comfort because I've been around it. And so why can't that happen for all students in a classroom? And that lends itself to the adult community, because when we grow up with a diverse population in our classrooms, and we go out into the real world and there's a diverse population out there, we know what to do. We all know what to do. Individuals with special needs know what to do, and children with they're considered neurotypical know what to do. So that's my piece on inclusion. I'm a huge supporter of inclusion, if you can't tell.
Excellent point. And well received, right? This is a group of individuals that are probably champions as well. And so maybe we can talk about opportunities. I know Jeff from STEM Sports posted in the chat about ways to engage. We just talked about this on our call the other day, right? Athletic students with non-athletic minded students, right? That's also considered, populations that definitely don't always intermix. So including that STEM aspect is a bridge to get those different communities of learners to talk to one another. So again, I want to thank all of our presenters today. Thank you all for participating in the breakout rooms. I'm going to send it over to Dr. Babender to finish out, and I'll pull back up the slides. So thank you again. Great discussion. I appreciate all of you. And Jeremy, if you're talking, you're muted.
Yep, you're muted.
I'm at a different location, so I don't have my monitor, and my setup is a little different. But just really want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's been making this happen. Every time it's getting smoother, the conversations, I'm lucky I can jump between the breakout sessions, and thank you to the moderators, to our team, Arizona Science Center for being our co-host to help really make these happen. And we're hoping that your participation continues to happen, and also letting us know what other topics. This one was definitely one of the most popular topics we received and what people wanted to connect about. The next topic, again, was something that was suggested, which is going to be 2 weeks from today on Thursday, July 9th from noon to 1, which is cybersecurity, how to protect yourself, your family, and community. Obviously, during this time is important. And later, we're going to want to have some conversations about some rubric items that we're working on for the STEM ecosystem work. But again, thank you for being here, and for the vibrant conversations. And turn it back over to Kelly and team. We'll hang out probably for a couple more minutes if there's any other questions or thoughts you have.
We do have a quick poll that we would love to give our participants, just really quick. So up on your screen, Kelly will deploy that for you as you see it now. If you could just take maybe 30 seconds to answer those questions for us, it really does help us as we're thinking about next topics and how to move forward with STEM community lunchtime conversations. And if you have any additional resources or questions, go ahead and put those in the chat as well. We do go through the chat and pull out any of those resources, go into the Google Docs and aggregate that in order to send out to the group who registered for today's event. So.
And with that, we want to say thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you spending your lunchtime with us, and have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy your weekend.